meeting. Thank you for taking part in this meeting. As usual, let's start perhaps with a short prayer before we recognize all the people who are there. Father, thank you this morning. Thank you for your goodness and your faithfulness that you have made it possible for us to meet this morning. We pray, O Lord, that your presence will go with us this morning, and that all deliberations we will give only honor and glory to your name only. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's meeting. Today's meeting is on mentorship in medicine, in surgery, in anesthetic, generally in medicine. That is mentorship in medicine, and also we will talk about group practice. We will spend the next few minutes just welcoming all of you and introducing the people who are going to speak today. And I hope that we will have a vibrant discussion. Firstly, there is Dr. Marks. Laurie Marks is no visitor to this platform and is no new person. He is an anesthetist, a good mentor, a great mentor, a teacher at heart, and Laurie will speak to us. The next one will be Mr. Matthew Wazara. Most of you would know him. He used to be a president of SSZ. Matthew is a great mentor himself, and he will talk about mentorship. The next one is Rhoda Mafukize. Rhoda is a nurse practitioner. The nurse practitioner, but can we try and mute if we are not talking so that we don't disturb other people? Rhoda is a heroine in her own right. These are the 4 young ladies who decided that they were not going to let only the government be the one who opens nursing schools. And Rhoda and her people opened the first nursing school in the avenues. They went forward to St. Anne's to open a nursing school. And in the end, Rhoda alone single-handedly went to Bulawayo Mater Day and opened the nursing school. So if we are talking of mentors and we are talking of people who work in teams, there is no better person than that to talk about mentorship. We are going to also see Dr. Mandao. Dr. Mandao, are you here? Dr. Mandao is
yes, I am here, sir.
What is are you Dr. Mandeo or Dr. Mandao? We are
Mandeo.
Mandeo. Well
yes.
done. Well done. Yes. Because everybody is spelling your name wrongly and you are not protesting. Dr. Dana Mandeo is a recently qualified medical doctor in her first year of residency. And I have to read this. She is working at Paris. She is a current executive board member of the Zimbabwe Women Doctors Association. Please mute your mic if you are not speaking so that others are not disturbed. Dr. Mandeo is an active member of the Christian Medical Fellowship of Zimbabwe. She aspires to be involved in bringing technological solutions to health challenges in Africa. Dr. Mandeo is also a Hanson's Leadership Fellow from the University of San Diego. So we have got a good mentor and a good and active, young, vibrant doctor to talk to us this afternoon, this morning. Next is Professor Makunike Mutasa. Rudo, all of you would know. She's been in the university and has been teaching pathology for over 30 years. A great mentor, and she will speak to us later on. Mr. Lance Fraser, I know very little about him, and that is good for us all because he will introduce himself and talk to us. He's the CEO of our sponsors for this morning. And then Mr. Manguiro, T.I. Manguiro is a urologist, used to be the head of surgery at the university. Taurai Zimono is a member of the team that separated the Siamese twins, if you remember. I don't know whether he's a doctor of engineer or engineer. If you need anything that you are not sure of, just call him and ask him. He has a wealth of knowledge, it's incredible. And then we will get Dr. Nancy Yonka talking to us. Nancy Yonka is the leader of the team at DIC and has been in group practice for all this while. And so Nancy will be talking to us this morning again. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me first of all call Mr. Lance Fraser, the CEO of the Profin Group, to talk to us. And we start with him. Mr. Fraser.
Well, thank you very much to everybody. I'm going to just share my screen now with everybody so that you can all see, and we'll start our presentation. All right, I trust that you can all see the screen. I'm sure that somebody will tell me if you can't, but Dr. Alex, I'm sure everything is okay. I'm sure everybody can see my screen.
Good. You are
fantastic.
Doing good.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for allowing us to sponsor you this morning. Thank you very much for allowing us to address you in terms of advising you who our company are in the African context and globally as well. And I know that our time is very limited. So our particular topic when we're talking about financial planning is something that we could possibly talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but we don't have hours and hours today. So really just want to give you a very brief background over the next sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes as to who we are, where we fit into the financial arena internationally, and I believe how we can add value and how we can assist you as professional people in Zimbabwe to look after your financial affairs, both possibly from a practice point of view and also from an individual point of view. So really just to give you a little bit of the background of our company. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to change the slide. Oh, there it's coming. Okay. You will see that our company's had a very, very long history and background in Africa. We used to be part of Old Mutual International out of the United Kingdom, not out of South Africa and Zimbabwe. When they listed on the London and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in the year 2000, we as management did a buyout of the international division. And today we're very proud of the fact that we have become the leading provider of offshore financial services in Africa, and certainly by far the largest provider of offshore financial services. There are a couple of things that have made our company very, very successful over the years. The one is where we refer to as the total independence. So as a financial advisory company, we don't come to you with a Barclays, a Standard Chartered, an Old Mutual hat on. We are totally independent. And as you can see from this slide, we represent some of the world's largest financial institutions. We therefore are their eyes and ears on the ground in Africa. We therefore play a very important role in basically bridging the gap between you as an investor and these international companies by offering financial advisory services on their behalf to you. So if you just have a look at it in terms of some of the other history, we obviously providing massive security and confidentiality when we're talking about investments in offshore jurisdictions. Those companies provide us with access to nearly 40 other underlying financial institutions, the likes of JP Morgan, the likes of BlackRock, the biggest fund manager in the world, GAM, VAM, Allianz, all these other international companies. And I think with you sitting in Zimbabwe, and I might as well might let you know that you may hear I'm a South African, although I'm actually sitting at our offices in Kenya at the moment. And I've traveled around Africa extensively. We have offices in West Africa, in Nigeria. We have offices across East Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. We have offices obviously in Zimbabwe, and we have offices in Zambia. So I've been coming into your beautiful country since around about 1990, spent a lot of time in your country. So I have a very good track record of what has happened in Zimbabwe from a historical, financial point of view, the disruption of currency, the disruption of your financial lives and the way things that have happened in Zimbabwe and the resilience that Zimbabwe professionals have had to all of these challenges that you've been facing. So why I've highlighted local servicing, and that to us is key. So whilst we may be an international company with our head office internationally and offices across Africa, we have a local presence. So Profin Zimbabwe Private Limited is a company that's licensed by your Securities Exchange Commission. Thank you very much to Fina. We'll give you her details later, to Fina, for arranging for us to sponsor this morning's presentation. And really, we are on the ground there. So we have a team in Zimbabwe. The team is available to talk to you. And that has really made us very, very successful in Africa over the years in that we are there. If you have a look at the range of services that we provide, it is very, very extensive. So right from simple financial planning services, planning for retirement, children's education needs. You're all professional people. Hopefully you want your children to be educated, whether it's in Zimbabwe or internationally. Assisting people with offshore banking facilities, retirement savings, and then also the side in terms of group life, risk, individual life, and very important for you people because you're in the medical fraternity, and hopefully every one of your clients has medical insurance so that they can pay for all the fees that you're going to be levying. And then we have very specialist services where we create offshore companies, offshore trusts, international property, second residency, and portfolio management for high wealth net clients, family office, that type of thing. So in a nutshell, that's really what we do as just really covering them in context. So when we have a look at it, we say, well, where do our families start? How do we do that financial journey? I think, as financial advisors, what I wanted to put in this slide is just to say to you that we sit with you as an individual, as a professional, as a family person, and say to you, these are the priorities that we think you should have in life. And I'm not talking about priorities in terms of your professional life. I'm talking priorities in terms of your personal life. So as a professional person, as a family person, more importantly, you should have a last will and testament. You should ensure that you have adequate life cover because there's always a consequence of death. You should make sure you have adequate medical insurance, adequate provision for retirement, making sure your children have enough money to be able to be educated. And then obviously just legacy planning and wealth creation. And the way that I've actually put these down there is actually the order of priority that I think is important. You must have a will. It's important first to have life insurance and medical insurance because these are events that happen during your lifetime that can have critical effects on your family that you might leave in the event of death, or if you have major medical expenses that cannot be paid for. Then obviously retirement is something that you cannot leave too long in life. And then educating your children is obviously a very, very key issue. And that thing I put in red there, if that's a message we can just leave with you, and I know Zimbabwe, it's been very, very difficult over the years, but savings needs to become a culture. And you need to form and part of monthly expenses and budget And often I say to people, do you budget? Do you put down what you're spending every month? You need to budget. You need to see how your savings fit into your budget on a monthly basis. All right. So one of the issues I'd wanted to speak to you as a professional team about is the particular issue relating to life insurance. And why is that critical? People like to shy away from life insurance and not talk about life insurance. But really, when you have business life insurance and you're looking at, but particularly maybe you have a practice of 3 or 4 partners, you need to be looking at insuring each other to safeguard the future of your company and the practice that you have. Also to safeguard the value for your family in your business. So if you're 2 doctors in a partnership, you need to say to one another, what will happen if one of us pass away? How will your wife get the value out of our partnership? How will my wife get the value out of my partnership out of this partnership if I die? And there are things called buy and sell agreements that you can put together. And our Office Finer charity, other people can help you do that, is where the one doctor will insure the life of the other. So in the event of the one dying, that money is paid out to the other partner's family in terms of the practice value. So very, very critical and important. And if you maybe have 4 or 5 doctors in a practice, or maybe you have key individuals within your practice that if they passed away, it would have a financial impact on the business itself. So really, it's something that we can assist you with and something that we can discuss later as well. So I don't need to tell you about why you should invest internationally, why we think it's good, prudent practice to have some of your money in an international hard currency environment. You know as well as I do in terms of Zimbabwe, political, economic risk, internationally provides you with global tax efficiency. Inflation is another thing I don't need to educate Zimbabwe people on. Internationally, investments have flexibility. We're able to tailor make investment solutions to each and every one. Obviously, they're internationally costed. Currency risk, again, I've highlighted. I don't need to tell Zimbabwe, and diversification. So on the currency, I just thought it would be interesting to show you a slide that I have that comes pre-COVID, ends 2019, before COVID hit us, just in terms of how other African currencies, and leave Zimbabwe out because I know the tragedy you had with inflation and depreciation, but even other major African currencies, how they have depreciated over the years against major trading partners. And unfortunately, this is a reality, and it is going to continue because of pure economic principles that are taking place in our global economy. All right. Then obviously people also talk to us and they say to us, we're very concerned internationally. What about risks of investments? Well, I can assure you that we can structure investments for you that are right from low risk to high risk. We require you to tell us. We assist you and educate you about international returns and whether you want to be a high-risk investor or a low-risk investor. Okay. We're able to provide diversification. So your investments internationally can have a portfolio of cash, bonds, property, equities, alternative strategies. So major global diversification and allowing your couple of hundreds of dollars a month to basically benefit from what is happening in the global economy. And I just wanted to show you, because often people aren't aware that the world we're living in is not looking backwards. The world we're living in is looking forward. And although there are hiccups, there are global recessions, if you just look at one of the fund managers that we use on a balanced strategy, that's the blue line as well, you'll see that even going back from the year 2013 to 2020, there's been an upward trajectory, a major upward trajectory. Okay, this is a particular technology fund that they have. The technology sector in the world is continued to thrive and flourish. So we're able as Profin to assist you to make the right decisions in what you're looking to achieve. So our office in Zimbabwe, Fina, other members of the team, professional people can sit with you as professionals and talk to you on a one-to-one basis about your financial planning. At the end of the day, you're professional people. You don't go into a surgery without finding everything out about your patients and exactly what is required to do when you use your scalpel and you start the surgery. And the same thing with Profin. We want to sit with you as professional people, ask you as many questions as we can, get your trust, and get you to disclose and tell us about your wishes, your goals, your outlook for what you're trying to achieve financially. Once we have that, we can go away, we can do a detailed investment analysis, we can look at what the right solutions are, how we can assist you, and making sure that we do give you the most appropriate advice. One of the things Profin always say to our clients is, this is not our investment strategy, it's your investment strategy. How can we help you make sure that you are achieving the right goal at the end of the day? And at the end of the day, we then implement and we provide ongoing service and support. As I say to you, I've been going to Zimbabwe since 1990. Our Profin group, originally it was under the old mutual group called Finexco International in Zimbabwe. And we've been there for many years, and we will continue to be there for many, many years going forward.
Mr.
So the last slide I just want you to leave you with is that this is from the great Warren Buffett. So do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Okay, he's a gentleman at 98 years old today and worth 82 billion US dollars. So a very, very good amount of advice from him. Once again, thank you to Fina. Thank you to all of you for allowing me to take up 10 or 15 minutes of your time. And I hope that's all I took. But we certainly are available in Zimbabwe. Fina can be contacted. Profin can be contacted. And we would welcome the opportunity to assist you with your financial planning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fraser, we have a slot for you that you are going to speak at 9:45, and we are going to have people asking many more questions. But at this point in time, perhaps I would allow two people to...
society, this metamorphosizing...
What's going on here?
I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay, so at this point, I would allow two short questions. And please don't go away, because there is a slot for you also at 9:45. And I think many people would have thought and written down their questions which they would ask. Are there any burning questions that people would ask now? Please, Dr. Manyami, please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for...
Find your way. I would strongly suggest if you...
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for your presentation. I think my first question, which always makes me wonder, is, are savings in the same column as investments? So when you're saving money, is it an investment? Well, I know it's not an investment because it's just money, it's just cash. But is it, when you're budgeting, savings and investments, are they in the same column?
There's not really, no. To be very honest with you, no. A saving is something that you can just put in a bank account and have money just lying there, not working for you. When you look at once you have that saving, you need to decide how that saving will actually work for you. And that's where Profin come in. We can assist to put that saving into an investment that will have a multiple of assets attached to it, either, as I said, from low risk to high risk to medium risk. We are a very cautious company by nature. So generally we will advise to be cautious. Our goal is to protect your money. Our goal is to grow your money. But for your money just to be sitting in a bank account, not earning any return, is yes, a form of saving, but it's not a form of prudent saving. That money actually needs to work for you and be in some form of investment. So there's either a 5-year or a 10-year or a 15-year goal that you can achieve from your savings to achieve a growth and become an investment over a period of time.
Thank you so much. Okay. I think we would reserve the next questions for the later time when Mr. Fraser is there.
Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen now so that the next person can have the floor.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Okay.
Let me call upon Laurie Marks to share with us mentoring in medicine. Laurie Marks to share with us mentoring in medicine. Can we give him the chance also to share his screen, Melissa? Yeah. Laurie, you are on and you are talking to us on mentoring in medicine.
Good morning, all. Thanks very much, Alex. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk to the Surgical Society about mentoring in medicine. It is always a very nice thing to have, as a surgeon, it's always a very nice thing to have an anaesthetist on your side. And it's really important to have the anaesthetist starting before surgery starts. So it is encouraging from my point of view that I'm the first speaker of the formal presentations this morning. Can you can see my screen adequately?
Yes.
Okay, great. So mentoring in medicine, huge topic, impossible to cover in 10 minutes. So absolutely. I'm going to be giving you an overview of some thoughts I have with regard to mentoring in medicine. This is what I was, and I had mentors who took me up the staircase and led me to where I am today. There are multiple models in mentoring. It is not a new topic or subject, and I'm really wanting to focus on operative specialities. So it's in the theatre, ICU, critical care arena, resus, ER, OR, that sort of thing. These are the questions I'm wanting to deal with this morning. Does it matter? And I hope at the end of it, you will agree with me it does. Does it work? And there is ample evidence to show that it does work. And then why don't we do it? Well, it's difficult. And I hope at the end of this, I will be able to show you some of the problems with it. Mentoring is not a new thing. It comes from Homer's Odyssey, where Mentor was a character who was to come alongside Ulysses' son. In the early 1900s, Osler Cushing modeled and advocated mentoring-mentor relationships. Surgeon William Halstead said we must not only produce surgeons, but surgeons of the highest type of men, and that we will stimulate youths of their country to study surgery. So the definitions of mentoring is teaching, role model. We should be approachable, wise counselors, trusted advocates, challengers, and encouragers. This is a huge task, impossible, but it is possible. Mentoring is the process by which an experienced person does guidance, support, and encouragement to the less experienced person. And this relationship is what we're going to be focusing on. And it's based on consideration, camaraderie, commonality, and confidentiality. That is really important in the whole process. WHO in 2010 stated this: accessibility, qualified, and responsive human resources, that's us, doctors and nurses, are critical determinants to the functioning health system. We live with a problem in Zimbabwe that they identified skill and competency gaps as major problems, and they encouraged as one of the short-term solutions that mentoring may be a way of achieving this. So it goes all the way up. Now, some studies. 2014 in the US, surgical departments, only a little more than 50% were doing mentoring. Most were informal and unstructured. Kenya 2015 had similar issues, and they recognized that these programs were of benefit. Again, in Kenya, different university looking at surgical residents, that mentorship was largely undeveloped. In Uganda, 2019, limited knowledge by the faculty. 2016, this is a Mentorship program, their outreach in DRC. They stated that there was a positive impact in personal and surgical and organizational surgical after the completion of the program up to 18 months. So, multiple studies all over the world in developed and less developed countries, and the problem is we don't do it right. What is accepted is that mentoring programs are beneficial at all stages of medical training. And in many, many universities, it is a core component of training. So the mentor-mentee relationship is based on confidentiality. It has to be fundamental that the person who is the mentee trusts the mentor. There has to be a trust relationship between this. Programs that are voluntary tend to work better than those that are structured. This little mind map is really important because it is a sharing of ideas depicting this. Actually, this is wonderful because it also talks about the cloud, and that's where mentoring is headed. These are some of the stickers that depict what mentoring is. Is there a best way of doing it? And the answer is no. There are lots of different ways of doing it, formal or structured and informal. These are different types. Mobile mentors coming in and out of the department, within a faculty, people embedded into a unit or a hospital, can be done over the phone, email, WhatsApp. Twinning institutions are recommended and have lots of benefits. These models I'm not going to deal with. Apprenticeship, cloning, nurturing, and friendship all bear an impact in healthy mentor-mentee programs. How do you choose a mentor? As Yoda says here, searching for a mentor you are? Not easy, it is not easy. And as we know with dogs, mentors can look like any of these animals. Wonderful, fierce, not so clever, cunning, too fast, too slow. Cartoons are a great way of breaking things down. What makes a good mentor? These are the things that we find, and there's a lot of commonality between the two, being a good mentor and a good student. Listening, supportive, guidance, good knowledge, good role model, approachable, caring. The big thing with this is mentoring is a shared power model. the mentor and the mentee have equal power in the relationship. It's of mutual benefit, and it's aimed at professional development, improving professional skills based on the mentee's needs. I'm not going to cover this program because we've got two speakers that are dealing with the benefits of mentorship. All I want to show you and highlight in the slide, very big research article here, 30 papers, on 24 studies, very recent, 2019. All models were effective, okay? That's the bottom line. Doesn't matter how you do it, it's got to be done in a structured function. There are many advantages, and this slide shows you mentees have benefits, mentors have benefits, and there are significant institutional benefits. Mentors, this is a wonderful paper, and it outlines 12 tips for developing effective mentors. I don't want to cover this. I put it up just to show you that it's been done and it's in the references and it can be shared by email afterwards. But it covers lots of the things that I've mentioned already, and it deals with some of the areas that we've got to deal with, cultural and gender issues. Mentors need mentoring as well. We need recognition, protected time, and support. Why do mentoring systems fail? Mentorship requires a level of commitment and altruism that's not easily delivered in today's world. It is a problem where there's financial competitiveness amongst ourselves. These are time constraints, limited availability, gender, minority issues, and generational differences. We are often, as mentors, clinical educators, and we haven't received adequate training on how to be a mentor. So failed mentoring relationships were characterized by poor communication, lack of commitment, differences between mentor and mentee, competition, conflicts of interest, and the mentor's lack of experience. So, is mentoring an outdated model? This is my last slide. Is it outdated? If it's worked for so many years, why can we not adapt it to a new model? And I think that's what we have to do. We have to, this statement is a profound statement, and the system fails because we haven't adapted the system to the changing ways of doing what we do now. Mentors are often dissatisfied. The mentee is often dissatisfied. The mentor is not a gift from God, but what can they do for me? Standards that mentors are held to are very high. And outcomes in terms of today's productivity is very difficult to measure. So we need to change the way we train, nurture, and develop new breed of medical educators to navigate through changing demands. And it may be that the digital era will allow greater access using platforms that cover different time zones, geographic barriers, and places all over the world. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave these references up. They're on a Word document, which I can email afterwards. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you for an exceptionally good session from you. This was quite good. And firstly, you said that a mentor comes from Odyssey, and you explained a little bit. Mentor was this character. Mentor was this character who was supposed to teach Telemachus, who is the son of Odysseus, how to behave, the how to. This man was in the house and said, as a prince, you can't talk like this. As a prince, you can't behave like this. As a prince, you can't eat like this. And in real terms, today, if you see two seniors sitting at a corner somewhere, they are criticizing the young ones who have not done this, who have not done that. So I think you gave us an excellent presentation, and this is provocative. I'm going to allow one question only because we have some time at the end to discuss fully. If you have a question, please write it down, but I would allow, whilst Mr. Wazara is preparing, I would allow for one question to Dr. Laurie Max. I want to see a hand up, and then the person will be allowed to ask the question. There is no hand up here.
Anesthesia was very successful. It induced somnolence.
Oh, I see a hand here. I see a hand from David Chimuka. David, please go ahead and ask the question, but it must be brief, please. David, go ahead.
Unmute yourself, David.
Hello.
Good
Yes,
morning.
go ahead. David, go ahead. A brief question.
Unmute yourself, David.
David, unmute and then ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to say to Laurie, you know, we started a long time ago, and we have seen young people being trained and coming in, joining our profession, especially surgery. And what worries me is that a person comes, finishes MEd, and after finishing his 1 year of senior registrarship, he's called a consultant. What do you think about that?
I think the bottom line is our time frame of actually being a consultant is too short. I think at the end of the time, what you've done is you've proven to everybody that you are you have the knowledge skill base, but the application of that knowledge in wise practice, dealing with your peers in clinical and very difficult clinical situations, academic situations, managerial situations, all requires a lot longer than the 5 years of an MEd program or any other specialty program. And I think actually the continued persistent training that goes on for life is something that is absolutely essential. And we've got to have the model where we've got old and gray walking alongside the young and strong who are recently qualified, and not only training clinically, but training, as Alex was saying, in the way of the world.
I see. Laurie, carry on.
So it's a short question, but it's a big answer, and I don't think you can actually deal with it in a short fashion. But it is significant that we don't have the right way forward, and that's what everybody in the literature is saying. Things do need to change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Nozipo, we said we were going to do only one question. So write your question down, and then we will deal with it in a few seconds. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the next one is Mr. Matthew Wazara, who needs no introduction. I introduced him before. He used to be the president of the Surgical Society, and many of you would know him, a great mentor. Matthew, please go ahead. You are going to talk to us about Doctor Becomes What Doctor Beholds.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm unable to start my video. That may be a good thing, but I'm hoping that you can see the screen. Is that right?
Yes, we can see the screen.
And thank you for the opportunity to share this morning. And rather than take a scientific or an academic approach to the topic that I'd like to share, I felt to share a little bit of of my own experience as a trainee and the experiences that that I went through, and I'm hoping that along the way, various ones can pick up a few handles as well. So the big question is medicine as science or an art? And I think that most people already know the answer to this. You know, it's not a pure science because it's an applied science. Things that I put in red there, half of what is true today will be proven to be incorrect in the next 5 years. We just don't know which half it is going to be. So the study of medicine itself could be called a science, but its application, and as Laurie was saying earlier, its wise use over time is the art. And both, so you can ask which one is the superior one, whether to have science or the art. So it's important to have the science I put there. It is greater to have the art, but it is best to have both. Armand Trousseau of the Trousseau sign said that the worst man of science is he who has never an artist, and the worst man of art is he who has never been a man of science. Thank you. So he said in early times, medicine was an art placed at the same on the side of poetry and painting. Administrator, please mute all other mics if possible. And then they said, but today they try to make it stand besides mathematics, astronomy, and physics. And he was protesting the loss of the art of medicine. But for mentoring, in my view, the art of medicine is the king, you know, and I tried to list some of the things that over time I felt were important. Communication with respect, you know, the medical training in many parts is full of this intimidatory kind of make you feel small if you don't know kind of approach of mentor to mentee or trainer to trainee. I think communication with respect is important. The deportment of the trainer, I think, is important because that's what sets the model of the thing that you imitate. I saw Mr. Roger Dent and Dr. Solomon Guramatun wearing bow ties when I was a second or third year student, and it just looks so smart to me. And I've tried to ever since then to buy as many as possible, and it's had an impact. Then there should be an interest in the whole person that you're training, not just the thing that you're training them in, because there is a human being behind the trainee. And so people do have family issues. People do have marital problems while they're doing ward rounds with you and with us. And we have to be sensitive to that. And sometimes it's acts of service that are required. You know, the first time that I went into the Mikkels Hotel in my life was because my consultant took us to lunch when I was a JRMO, and I couldn't believe the exposure and just how that became a highlight of the training with that particular department. But sometimes it's just really to help them with internet or help them with books and things like that. And then so I put at the bottom that everyone wants to be like someone. Everyone who is a specialist or a doctor always talks about someone that they admire. And then there are also people that we see and know that we don't want to be like. And it is a thing for us as mentors and all of us to think about. So I put there my own experience. I said good mentors must exude enthusiasm, and I try to put some quotations there. Colin Saunders, that I worked with in Chirezi, said to us often, I've never woken up reluctant to go to work in all my life. And he was passionate, and he tried to inspire that passion in everyone. And I feel that a good mentor must show that they love what they're doing and not they're just doing it because the university has assigned them students or they need to earn money. They must be sensitive to the needs of the learner. Professor Clement Kire used to say on the Saturday morning, and I'm quoting this just to show what an impact what trainees have done in the past has on people that are still around. He used to say on the ward rounds, none of us have crossed until all have crossed. And this was usually to do with picking up signs or a procedure that he wanted everyone in the group to know. Mentors must have exemplary interpersonal skills. The moderator today used to tease us and call us colleagoids when we were medical students. But he used to say, be careful because colleagoids become colleagues one day. And it was to foster a kind of camaraderie between the mentor and the mentee in the knowledge that one day he might end up being. I've been muted, but I wasn't the one making noise. Okay, my fourth point there, the mentor also must have a good grasp of the knowledge. And the late Arthur Dunkley used to introduce his lectures by saying, my name is Arthur, I am fast and I'm good. And then he would go on to give a blistering lecture in a very captivating fashion. And so he would demonstrate that he had knowledge, but also an ability to transmit that knowledge. And then a mentor must be able to attract feedback. So many of us who are training people have no idea what impact we have on them. And the politicians once said at a rally here in Zimbabwe, you're free to make your speech, just how free you will be after the speech is the question. But we must not stifle feedback. We must be able to ask them to evaluate how we have come across and how beneficial we have been to them. After I graduated from the UZ, I was opened the door for by my professor that I was working with to go and study cardiothoracic surgery at Wits University. And I mentioned this because mentors have got this incredible ability. It was during apartheid, there were no supernumeraries allowed, but through the relationship of my mentor with the head of department, I was offered a place at Wits. I couldn't take it for other reasons, but mentors can open doors in a way that no one else can. When I worked in the district, I was always amazed at the referral letters that I used to get back from the consultants that would care to write back after you'd referred a patient to them. And a lot of those consultants I remain in relationship with because the professionalism and the excellence that was demonstrated. Then in my final year of my MMed, I really struggled balancing family, poor finances, and the academic pressure, and wanted to give up. And I didn't even speak to anyone, but one of the consultants just picked me out and said, look, I need to talk to you. You're not the first one that's done this. I see that you're burning out, but here's how you go about it. And then when I started out in practice, then I went to see a colleague who's on this platform to ask them how I could become a good specialist. And lo and behold, they in fact turned around and said, look, I have an extra room in my office. Come and practice with me. Watch what I do as best way I can teach you. And then when you're ready to go on your own, you can go. And I spent 18 months in a practice that I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to, I just watched. I had all the stuff and all the amenities. And that's inspired me to want to do it for someone else. And then as soon as I was able to fly out on my own, I was always in group practice. I always share evaluation of all patients, difficult patients with my partner. We share costs, we share revenue. We have passive income because one can earn in their absence. And I have greater peace because I can come back home and feel like, particularly after surgery, that we have given it our best shot. So we are more than what we just say. but and we pass on who we are rather than what we just say. And I try to give just a personal account to show that there is value in this art of medicine, and it cannot be read in the books. It can only be modeled, but there has to be a deliberateness in those that carry the art to transmit it on those that are trying to acquire it. And I believe that at any stage in our careers, we should have an upward relationship where there is someone that we are trying to imitate or someone that we are trying to impart something to us. I don't think you ever stop learning. And then we should have the peer relationship of like-minded, skilled and trained that we go into practice together with, and then not forget that what we owe to those that are following us to also share. So thank you very much, Mr. Danso. I just thought I'd share those.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Thank you. Please write down your questions, and I think time is trying to catch up on us, so we have to catch up on time. Write down your questions. I'm going to call Rhoda Mafukize to share mentoring who benefits. And as she does so, let me take the opportunity to introduce her again. You know, academic institutions, universities, medical schools, nursing schools, when all of us were studying, you get University of Zimbabwe, University of Ghana, University of Nigeria, University of Ibadan, and so nursing school, and so on. So for individuals to come up and say that, look, we are well able to start a nursing school on our own when you don't have the financial resources, and for you even to attempt it, that I think belongs to the realms of heroes and heroine. And Rhoda Mafukize is one such person. So I'm very happy to introduce her to talk about mentoring who benefits. So Rhoda, the floor is yours. You can talk, and when we finish, we will ask you a few questions. Thank you. Please, if you are not speaking, mute your so that we don't hear the noises there. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Rhoda, we can hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danso, for inviting me to this forum. Thank you, Dr. Max. That was deep. Thank you, Mr. Wazara, as well. Yes, I'm talking about benefits of mentoring. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare slides, but like a good mentor, I'm going to be using my therapeutic self only. So I have a number of benefits of mentoring that I have here. Firstly, there's job satisfaction for both the mentor and the mentee, where there's mentoring, whether it's intentional or not intentional. Organizational and developmental goals are also met where there's mentorship. You can agree with me that organizational and professional memory is also preserved where there's mentoring. And then that joy of working with someone towards self-actualization, like Benna said in 2004, seeing someone moving from novice to advanced beginner, to competency, to proficiency, to an expert, and then themselves becoming a mentor as well. That joy is a benefit to the individual, to the profession, to the mentor, and to the mentee. We should also realize that planned and intentional mentorship facilitates faster acclimatization of novices. You get to know your profession faster or your discipline faster because there is a mentor. Where there's mentoring, there is identification of strengths and weaknesses in a positive environment. The mentee's potential is also recognized, like Mr. Wazara also alluded to. Where there's mentorship, there is maintenance of competency and professionalism. Standards are consistently maintained. Mentorship encourages what I can call cross-cultural exchange of ideas, because obviously there's an interaction of one who is older and one who is young. So there's cross-cultural exchange there. Mentoring also helps develop leadership skills in both the mentor and the mentee. Mentoring helps new nurses or new doctors transition from the classroom, where there was lots of stimulation, to the real world of the healthcare settings. According to the Association of the California Nurse Leaders, they say there is a 25% reduction in turnover rates where there is mentorship. And they also say that mentorship saves time and money that can be spent on recruitment and training new nurses, because the ones that were on the ground have left. Mentoring also creates belongingness. According to Abraham Maslow, the mentee develops confidence and self-esteem. This is also confirmed by a study done by Nurse Today in 2017. And you can also agree with me that where there is mentorship, there is career direction. And Mr. Wazara again alluded to this. There's development and transfer of skills, knowledge, and attitudes. I can also safely say that a number of surgeons have been responsible for mentoring many nurses, including myself, where you go into an operating theater, you don't even know what instruments are needed for an appendectomy. But with the mentorship of such surgeons, there is career direction and development of skills. And not only skills, but also correct attitudes. At the end of the day, mentoring improves patient well-being and patient outcomes. And there is holistic care of patients. Where there's mentoring, we have nurses and doctors, we are not looking at a patient like a fracture to be taken care of or a chest to be taken care of, but they are able to look at the biopsychosocial, cultural, and spiritual component of the patient, not only the patient, and also colleagues. And Mr. Wazara also alluded to this. Mentoring also empowers nurses to take over from those retiring or slowing down, not only nurses, but also doctors and surgeons like you all. Because they've been mentored, they can now take over. So in summary of all these benefits come into play because of 6 messages that are passed on by the mentors. Summary of this presentation, I'm saying these 6 messages for us to benefit from mentoring. These 6 messages are as follows. A mentor should be able to say, hold my hand and walk with me. A mentor should be able to say, work with me, watch me. It can be done. You are not alone. I believe in you. So the 6th message again, in conclusion, I'm saying, walk with me, work with me, watch me. It can be done. You are not alone. I believe in you. So in summary, these are some of the benefits of mentoring. Thank you very much, Sexual Society of Zimbabwe and Mr. Dan. So thank you for inviting me. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhoda, for the excellent talk to us. We will go forward and give time for questions at a later time. So let me call Dr. Mandeo, Life Done Together. Dr. Mandeo is one we had introduced already, and she would give us Life Done Together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see you in a beautiful surgical scrub and so on.
It is not me, but thank you very much. Let me restart. Yes, okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to start the slideshow. Okay. I hope it's now full screen. Thank you so much for this honor to talk about mentorship as a mentee and from the perspective of a doctor who was just starting in a room that is filled with most of my mentors. So that is no pressure at all. So I chose the topic Life Done Together with the understanding that mentorship should not be a set or a timed thing, but it should be something that progresses for the duration one is a doctor. Okay, so I started with the quote from the Hippocratic Oath, the part that says, "To hold him who has taught me this art is equal to my parents, and to live my life in partnership with him." And this is with the understanding that the people who teach us medicine and surgery play an important role in our lives and in our careers, and that this role continues to go on. And to equate them to parents, Hippocrates, who was the father of medicine, is saying that we will learn from our mentors for the rest of our lives. And therefore, that is why I advocate for a structure of mentorship that progresses the lifetime of a doctor. So I also started from the Greek. So Odius, also known as Ulysses, had a son, Telemachus, who was mentored by Mentor. And since this was a role that was given to mentor by Ulysses, who was a god, it became known as a gift from the gods to be called a mentor. Something that stuck out for me on this is that Ulysses, or Odius, did not trust his own family and trusted Mentor, his friend, to teach his son and not necessarily his own brothers. So that is the value and the potency of mentorship. In Telemachus was supposed to be a king. And when you go to medicine, the most notable mentorship structure was that of Osler and Cushing, who mapped medicine and surgery for a century. In the 20th century, were mapped by their contributions from the 1900s, after Osler established a friendship with Harvey Cushing and identified him as a surrogate son. Another example, this was from a neurologist in Mutare. Many of you might know him. He's currently in his 60s. So I had gone for a consult for my grandmother, and we were there in the room, and he was consulting my grandmother, and he sort of diverted and started talking to me about mentors in medicine. He asked me if I had a mentor, and he then opened up an old ophthalmoscope that he was given by his mentor when he was still studying in Manchester. And he also had a copy of a letter that his mentor had written to him when he had started as a junior doctor. So that discussion that I had with him for the next hour, which was supposed to be my grandmother's consult, it kind of reflected to me the importance of mentorship and the current structure that used to be there that we do not benefit from. This is because, as you know, we are now bigger classes. In the yesteryear, it used to be 20 medical students as to 20 specialists. Maybe that's why they had better mentorship programs, but we also do not have this kind of lifelong mentorship structure. The reason why people who become doctors sort of need mentors, it goes beyond the professional aspect into the personalities aspect. There was a study done in the UK that profiled doctors and their personalities using the Myers-Briggs personality test, and it showed that for every specialty, there's a kind of personality that will go there. So therefore, that means that people who are in your specialty understand you even more than any other person, because they kind of have the same personality as you do. Other reason that mentorship is important in medicine is that we learn by what we see. And medicine in its simplest form, I believe, is a lifelong apprenticeship. Apparently, so it's a funny story that the reason why we examine from the right, nobody knows. and that apparently there's now a call by left-handed doctors that doctors must be allowed to examine from whatever side they think is right. But then that shows how much we learn from what we see, because even when you just approach a patient, you know you have to go from the right, because this is what we've learned. And of course it helps us, but it shows that the impact of who we learn something from is important, and it's inextricable, and it's woven into how we practice as well. As well as the fact that the joys and woes of practicing medicine are uniquely shared in people in the profession. And sometimes the challenges that people face, given our current even state of medical affairs in the country, these are things that even if you try to talk to someone else who's not in the career, they might not understand. And also the transference of knowledge, skills, and professionalism, or the lack thereof, is interwoven into what we see you, the older and wiser clinicians, do. That is what we are learning, or that is what we are not learning. I believe that what we need as young doctors is a structured as well as nurtured relationships of mentoring that start from third year, when you start your clinical years and you're still excited about being in the wards, and going up to the first time you're a GRMO and you're on call, and up to when people start specialization, the junior specialists and senior specialists, so that it's an involved influence, as well as to create it into a lifelong journey. I remember Mr. Wazara once shared about how they used to go to Mr. Danso's house, and they used to have braais and stuff like that, to have interaction that goes beyond the lecture rooms, as well as to have a life done together mentality, whereby we don't have to go through the same mistakes or the same problems that all the doctors already went through, that we benefit from them having earned that hard-earned wisdom, and then we get ahead of the learning curve. So I believe an IDU mentorship program would be one that is structured. My emphasis on structure is that it's sometimes difficult for someone to just go and approach a specialist that they admire. But if there's sort of a structure and a way for them to do that, and as well as openness in terms of learning, not just from the highlights of their careers, but also from the low points, as well as accessibility to mentors, as well as making sure that these programs are long-term and not just something that is done maybe after this meeting and we are all feeling pumped up about mentorship, and then we have a mentorship program that is very active in the Surgical Society of Zimbabwe for the next month, and then it dwindles when the next month, the next topic is finances or something like that. So I believe in a multi-tier concept, whereby creating a specialized cohort of mentorship with a senior specialist, junior specialist, senior registrar, junior doctor, a senior medical student in their final year of training, and a junior medical student who's just starting their clinical years. Why I believe in this model is that there are specific challenges from each of those specific points in the career that are important, and that, you know, people have questions in, like, you've just become a specialist, what are you supposed to do? You are just a junior doctor, what specialty must you go into? And you're a medical student, what does the career entail? So I do believe in a multi-tier concept that is a cohort that comes together, and they get to interact in that specific cohort. And I just wanted to share a bit about what I learned on mentorship and openness. So I had gone for my elective in South Korea, and it was my first day in the infectious diseases rotation unit. And our consultant came in with a tray of coffees. So we thought that she had bought for the registrars only, and she called us, even us as medical students, to take the coffee. For me, it was such a shocking experience, because I was used, you know, to hiding away and, you know, respecting the air that the consultants breathe. And it was so shocking to have this experience where we would have lunches and would discuss cases and would discuss, you know, the career and how she decided to specialize in what she had specialized in. So for me, that coffee opened. So this brings me to the point that I would believe that if you forget anything from what I've said, I think this is, for me, the most important point. The main hindrance to building successful and lasting mentorship programs currently in our setting is the palpable difference and between the highest in the room and to us who may be lower in the food chain, that makes it difficult for people to ask questions and people to interact and, to learn more easily. So if there's anything we could do, it could be maybe to demilitarize the whole situation. Of course, the respect will be maintained, but to make sure that people can have access to ask questions and to learn in a more free environment is what I believe. And so from a mentee's perspective, I am so grateful to have my mentors. Some of them are on this call who have contributed so much into my life. And as I'm quoting the Bible, it says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction and do not forsake the teaching of your mother." And, from what I've seen them being humble, serving societies, doing medical outreaches, I've learned a lot, and it has affected how I see patients and like how I believe I'll be when I become higher up on the food chain to others as well. So I'm just going to conclude by then leaving this question to the floor and what you'd think an ideal mentee would be. What I would add would be an ideal mentee should have a teachable spirit and should make themselves accessible and should be willing to learn and also be understanding that, the mentors also have responsibility and life that is going on around them. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now.
Wow. I hope that this is a provocative one, a very good one, so that we can all take discussions from there. So I would go straight away to Professor Rudo Makunike Mutasa, and then after that, I think we will allow for a few questions. But please put your questions down. These have been quite stimulating. Dr. Mandevo, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Now we have Professor Makunike Mutasa talking about mentoring, who benefits. And I think the floor is yours, Professor Makunike.
Thank you very much, Uncle Alex. To Mr. Danso, to most, but to my husband and I, Uncle Alex and Auntie Mary, we are beneficiaries of a great mentorship program that grew from me being a student to me being a mentee, and here we are. So thank you very much for inviting me. It's my privilege and my pleasure always to be invited to the Surgical Society. Is my screen up? I never know.
Yes, it is. It is.
It is, okay. The beauty of a multidisciplinary seminar presentation like this is that we all have different vantage points. We have different ways of looking at it. And for me, I chose this topic, who benefits, because I am a beneficiary and I hope I have benefited. But what I would say most, particularly as a mentor rather than a mentee, because I have been both, or I am both, is that being a mentor for me is an absolute lesson in humility. What is mentorship? People think of different things. I love clothes. I enjoy clothes. I like to shop. I like to dress up. And I hope that my mentees take more away from me than just what I wear. But what would you want them to take away? I want them to take away not how I speak, but what I speak, what I dream about, how I relate to people, how I work, and probably most importantly, how I pray. I love this scripture, 2 Kings 2, verse 9. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I can give you before I'm taken away from you." Cognizant of the fact, Elijah was cognizant of that he was a man and he was mortal, and a time would come when he would no longer be able to do the wonderful miracles that he was doing and all that he was doing. He knew, he was so conscious of his mortality. When I'm taken away, and Elisha then says, "I would love to inherit a double portion of your spirit." And that's what I hope for me mentorship is, that when you read when they had crossed means that they were walking together. That's what mentorship for me is. You're just walking side by side. And at some point, there's got to be a transference of skill, a transference of your spirit. So if the young Elisha saw something in Elijah and wanted a double portion of that, there must have been something good in that. So to come back to my presentation very briefly, what are the benefits of mentorship? I will focus on the benefits for the mentor. The benefits for the mentee have been spoken about. I want to focus on the benefits of the mentorship for the mentor. And I believe that mentorship has grown, it has evolved from the time of the Greek gods. It has become more of a partnership and less of a mother, a child, father, child, teacher, student relationship. I think it has become more of a walk. And in Amos chapter 3, verse 3, the word of God says, can two walk together if they're not agreed? So there must be an agreement. In the chat box, I saw Mr. Mguti was asking about mentee resistance. For me, I believe there's no such thing, because once you're in a mentorship, it must be mutual. It must be cordial. So why should there be resistance? You've come together. Two cannot walk together unless they are agreed. For me, the benefits, it keeps me anchored. It keeps me anchored and keeps me well-rooted. It keeps me accountable. Things that I failed to achieve, I can achieve through the life of my mentees by gently urging on. So that for me is just really, really beautiful. For me, mentees are also my technical experts. I'm not techno-savvy at all, anything to do with anything with buttons, electronic things that happen. I have a total phobia, but a lot of my mentees have walked me through how to do a PowerPoint presentation, how to take photos on my iPhone, etc., etc. So I love that. And I can be as stupid as I want to be with them, because they are so scared to show me that, oh, actually, are you quite daft? Whereas if I had to do that from my husband, he said, don't you know how to do this? But with the mentees, they just politely show me. I have an extra pair of hands. I've taken a lot of my mentees to places that I need to do work, to outreaches, cleaning my house, doing whatever, extra pair of willing hands. It revitalizes me. It keeps me young. I know what the latest trends are. And to keep in step with them, I've got to keep abreast. And it makes me the bearer of many children. You know, we speak of fruit of our womb. Your womb may not have borne any fruit, or your womb can only bear all fruit. But with mentorship, you can have as many children as you possibly can think of. And one of the biggest things that for me, I have benefited as a mentor is lifelong networks. I've been to places in the world. In 2016, my husband and I flew to Yokohama in Japan for my husband was going for some Nikon conference, photographic, whatever. And when we got to our hotel room, there was a bottle of Japanese wine, old wine. Well, we're not wine drinkers, but it was still nice to get this beautiful wine bottle. And it was from a former mentee who had seen through hotel registration that we were coming, you know, things like that. I have so many stories of things to tell where people said, once I actually got a discount because somebody said, I think you were my brother's teacher. He talked a lot about you, and I got a discount on something totally unrelated to medicine. So I really, really benefited from that. And I also think, like Diana, that mentorship should not just be like the old age father, son, teacher, student, but it should be a team, a cohort, a group of people. And that helps to transcend gender barriers, age barriers. I've actually mentored people who are older than me because they came either as mature students or they were new to my field, or they just wanted to learn something from me. So it transcends gender, age, ethnic groups. So it really, really, as I said, replicates you. And in summary, I think it's a walk together. I like the phrase Mr. Wazara quoted Uncle Alex's colleagoids, yeah, because oid means like. colleaguoid means you are a little, you're like a colleague, but you are not. The oid was always emphasized, was you're not quite there. But I think as we walk together as mentors and mentees, as the Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens another. So I think the other also benefits. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share. Thank you.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it will be unfair just to go ahead and go ahead. We have absorbed so much that I think since I have the microphone, I will allow for a few questions and comments. But let's do it quickly before I call Mr. Fraser again. And Mr. Fraser, you can see that we are eating into your time, but you know that we are all sold for what you have already spoken about. So I need a few questions or a few comments on mentorship. But Rudo, thank you so much. I mean, this morning has been full of information and everything. Before we go to Mr. Fraser, let me get a few comments and questions. Right. Oh boy. Rukuzo, I see your hand is up. You want to please make your comments and your questions short. We will have another time too, but Rukuzo, please go ahead, unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. So my name is Dr. Rukuzo Mamuka. I'm a senior registrar in psychiatry, and thank you for all the presentations that have gone on. My question may be, in as much as this is the surgical society, but I believe that most of the consultants here are part of the university or the hospital institutions that we have been trained. And the mentorship program is actually not very functional in the university. Speaking from my own experience in undergraduate and postgraduate as well, it's probably your own initiative that you do. So I don't know what steps are being taken to actually have a formal mentorship where at least, you know, people would know whether their mentor-mentee relationship has worked and they can move to another one until they find that perfect fit of someone they can walk with through the journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there someone who wants to answer from the university?
I think I could take that up.
I was going to call you anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, Rukuzo. A few years ago, a formal structured mentorship program was set up where in second year, 18 to 20 students are given the name of a consultant who would be their mentor. But that has broken down for many reasons. A lot of systems in the university have broken down. Numbers have become really, really huge versus the number of, I think Diana alluded to that, the number of lecturers. And so that structured mentorship program does not exist anymore, unfortunately. It sort of exists at postgraduate level because as Diana again said, people who have gone into a certain specialty are like-minded with those who are already in that specialty. So that is a natural mentorship that then develops. In terms of the undergraduate, I'm afraid students just have to find people who they find approachable. And again, I think there's some benefit in that. It's difficult for the students who are very meek and difficult to approach people, but it allows them the flexibility to be mentored by who they want to be mentored. That where you have a name and have to go to so-and-so doesn't always work well because you might not have that much in common and you might not share the ideals of that person. Over to you, Mr. Denson.
Thank you so much. Is there another question here? If not, I'm going to allow Lance Fraser to give us a little and a short presentation again, or to provoke us with a discussion. He spoke at the beginning of the session and it was profound. I hope that he has a few more tips up his sleeve and we can hear him talk now. Lance,
thank you very much. And yeah, thank you very much. And it was very interesting listening to all your guest speakers as well, because I think, just to let you know, I mean, in our industry, in the financial services industry as well, and something we do within our own company as well, is mentorship is very much alive and something that is taking place, and certainly it has worked over many years. I've been in the financial services industry for over 3, 4, 5 decades now, so getting on. But certainly, just to recap in terms of what we went through from Profin, you know, just as people will consult you as professionals in terms of looking after their health, I think it's really important that as professional people, and most importantly, leave the professional people out, let's talk about family, is that as a family person, that you really look at getting guidance from a financial advisor, and whether it's a Profin group or not, let me put it to you that way, you need to look to somebody to give you guidance and mentor you as a family person in terms of how you should be managing your finances, because that's not your speciality. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, and to be quite honest, I trust I don't need to use your services in the future, because I hope I remain healthy and well. But at the end of the day, financial planning affects everyone. Whether you're a medical professional, an auditing professional, a legal professional, a school teacher, whatever, you need to be looking after your own personal financial planning. And I think that's one thing that's key, is I've always said to people that planning for your retirement, planning for your children's education, future education needs and requirements in terms of costing, is nobody else's responsibility but yours. You have to sit and you have to look after those finances. You work hard for the money. You've studied hard in your lives. You work hard every day. You have an absolutely incredible profession in terms of what you do. The medical profession over this last year, in terms of what's happened with COVID, has shown the world just how critical they are and how much in need they are. And it's incumbent upon you to sit and to get guidance from some other company, financial advisors, as to how to manage your financial affairs, and to make sure that you're making the right decisions about what you do with your money. You know, very often we go out and buy a motor car. We ask the salesman many questions about the car. We open the hood, we look inside, but we don't often do that with things like our will, retirement, just making sure that everything is right in our finances at home.
Thank you so much.
So very, you know, we're there, and again, financial planning again is a very personal issue. It does require sitting down with somebody, having 2 or 3 meetings, working out what are your needs, what do you currently have, what are you looking to achieve, what is your current income, what is your disposable income. That's critical. How to possibly your disposable income by getting rid of unnecessary expenses in life, and not wasting money, but looking more to save over a period of time. So we are there as a Profin group in Zimbabwe. Those who maybe, you know, want to include myself and other members of the management team of Profin in with meetings with people from the Zimbabwe team, we're very happy to do that. Today Zoom is available, Google Meet, all these financial virtual networks.
Lance, I think we have to move forward, but what I expect from you now is that whilst you have not shared any screen, perhaps you could quickly write a few things of where you can be contacted, because at the end of this session, there's going to be question and answers again, and it will be ideal for you to flight where your group can be contacted, because everybody needs some financial guidance. Okay?
100%, we will do that. And I think Fina from our Zimbabwe office as well is in contact with you, and she does have that relationship and the details.
Give us all those details. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think
thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we are behind a little bit, but these topics that we chose today, they should have been on their own for a session. The surgeons wanted to compress this into one, so we are going to go straight away into the group practice part of the situation here. And the first person that I call upon is Mr. T.I. Mangwiro to talk about group practice, our journey. Mr. Mangwiro needs no introduction. As I was telling you, he's been head of Department of Surgery before. He's a urologist. I call him my chairman. And so let me call Mr. Mangwiro to give us his insight into group practice.
Thank you, Mr. Danso, for the opportunity to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you colleagues who are on this platform today. I don't have any slides to project, because I thought this was like a personal journey of how we have done it, what has happened to us. And I thought I would just speak for a few minutes, and not in an academic kind of presentation, perhaps just to tell you our story, perhaps my story. So we are in a group practice at the moment, which has evolved in the multi-specialist group practice. But our journey in group practice started for me when I graduated from my training, postgraduate training. When I came back from the UK, I was offered an opportunity to join Mr. Danso as a partner way then 15 years ago, which I didn't take at the moment. At that moment, I proceeded to open my own practice and practice as a private urologist for some time. What then happened is that sometime in 2018, Mr. Danso called me and Mr. Gabea to sit on a table. The agenda of that meeting at the time was we need to come up with a practice. We need to come up with a facility. At the time, the idea was to pull resources together and efforts and build a hospital for urology, preferably. But at that discussion, we then realized that, well, we've been friends for some time. We've collaborated in managing patients. We've referred patients to each other. We've operated together. What we're trying to do is a big task. Why don't we start by working together to start with? So that was how this idea of a group practice for us was consummated. So we agreed that it was a good idea. Mr. Kabea, Mr. Danso, and myself, we sat and agreed that instead of having a loose relationship where we manage patients together sometimes, let's come together and practice from one place. So we decided to do that. So we went our way and came up with ideas of how we can do it. We sat down and agreed on the terms on what we think should happen, how we should go about it. We approached the lawyer who designed the deed for us, which we edited back and forth. By June of 2018, we had signed a partnership deed between the three of us. On the 1st of July, we came together. We started practicing as a group of 3 urologists at 266 Ebrechi Tepo in Harare. So that went well, and I would want to share my own thoughts and what I found in this period from July 2018, maybe up to the end of 2019, a period of almost 1.5 years. When I went into group practice, I realized that
please mute your, if you are not answering any questions or speaking, please mute. Please mute. You are disturbing the whole process. If you are not the one sharing, please mute your telephone, mute your speaker. Sorry, Mr. Mangiro, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we started practicing from 266 table, the three of us, from July of 2018. And personally, I realized that my outcomes of patients were better. You know, repeat surgeries were less. I had peace of mind. I had more time to myself to do other things. I regained a lot of my strength. I got enthusiastic to do other things. My mind was clear. I had colleagues all the time that I talked to about patients. So the setup that we had is that we had two people consulting at any one time. So there always interaction between the two of us. Consulting patients became a joy. We operate together on some patients where there are at least two surgeons operating. We share ideas when we're operating. Sometimes difficult procedures become easy because we are sharing knowledge and so forth. And for me, being the youngest, I'm not too young, of course, at this moment, but I'm the youngest in our group. I realized that the benefit of the wisdom of my two, I would call them my mentors, you know, operating with them, sharing ideas, showing you the ways of some of the things they do. Not that it was the first time to do it, but this was more formal and it was on a consistent basis. It improved my surgical skills, my appreciation of surgery and how to do things. I think I benefited and I'm still benefiting the most out of this. So this is for a period of about 1.5 years. So by end of 2019, we came together again and said, gentlemen, let us go back to our original grand plan. The original grand plan was that we wanted an institution for urology that we could control and practice from. We haven't achieved that. Of course, in that 1.5 years, we were consulting other people, we're looking for financiers, we're looking for partners that could help us achieve our dream. Remember, our initial goal was actually to have an institution which we could own or manage or control. We had mixed luck. Some people would come, they would show interest, would go and view properties on our own and with financiers, but that didn't quite work out very well. So what then happens is that by end of 2019, perhaps the first quarter, I would say the first quarter of 2020, we then sat down and strategized again to say, how can we achieve our objective? It looks like the financiers or other partners who are not necessarily doctors are not really forthcoming. Others came, they gave us proposals which we think did not benefit us. That's when the idea of setting up a multidisciplinary practice perhaps is the answer. To say, what instead of us being 3 here, is it possible to expand our partnership and incorporate other specialists or other doctors per se? And we have a core group of doctors that can come together and pool our resources together, perhaps our own resources to build an institution, or perhaps sell the concept to a financier who can help us have an institution. So that's how we started the multidisciplinary group practice, the first quarter of 2020. We sat down and we thought it was a good idea. So we then approached a few colleagues in the different specialties. We approached mainly those in the surgical specialty, general surgery, urology, pediatric surgery, cardiothoracics, neurosurgery, orthopedics, and oncology, and others that I can't mention at this forum today. So what we did is we approached a few colleagues, maybe 2 or 3, and we asked them a simple question. If we wanted to set up a group practice, would you share with us the colleagues that would want to be in that practice? So we ended up having a lot of numbers, and 60–70% of the names were actually common. That they were outliers, but 60% of people were identified by 3 or 4 people. We then approached these people, Mr. Dance and myself, and explained the concept to them, that we're trying to form a multi-specialist practice that is composed of different specialties. And we try to sell the idea that is a good idea, the benefits that we have accrued ourselves and the potential benefits of having a multi-specialist group practice with many doctors coming together, pulling their resources together, both in terms of technical expertise, in terms of finance, so that we as doctors could own something. So we managed to get some people coming. So by August of 2020, we had actually, contacted a lot of practitioners, especially in Harare, that showed some interest in this concept. And we then proposed, in the same time we were modifying our deed, we approached the lawyer who created the deed that could incorporate multi-specialist practice. We then went on to identify what we thought were team leaders in different specialties and form an executive committee that met and further deliberated on this and asked this gentleman to further identify people whom they think could join a group like this. It looked encouraging, and people went out and looked for partners, people they would want to work with that could form a core team. So that happened. So by the end of December, by 5th of December, to be precise, the first meeting was held where you invited all these people who had been invited by the different specialties. I remember the first meeting, we had over 50 people. I don't have a specific number here, probably 60 people attended this meeting. And a lot of people on this forum were actually on that meeting, where the concept of a multidisciplinary group practice was spelled out, what we thought were the advantages, especially using our own selves as the guinea pigs. We've done it for 2 years, and it did work very well for us. When we're happy, we're seeing the benefit of it. We're trying to share this with our colleagues. And 50 to 60 people attended, and a lot of people agreed with that at the time. We showed them the deed, that we have a deed, a partnership deed, which anybody could come and have a look at, read it, and if you agree and you buy into this concept, you are free to sign and you join this group. So from January 2021, so I would say the first quarter of 2021, January 2021 to February, people came and they signed to join this group of multidisciplinary medical practice. And yeah, we got a lot of people who joined and signed for it. So from the first quarter of 2021, some people were coming, some people were leaving, and so forth for different reasons. But I'm glad to say that from that time of December 2020 up to now, we now have set up a team of doctors, of specialists. We have managed to find housing at St. Anne's Hospital, where we've moved in from the 1st of August. We have 25 specialists covering the fields of general surgery, urology, orthopedics, pediatric surgery, cardiothoracics, neurosurgery, obstetrics and gynecology, and other specialties I can't mention at this time. So we have about 25 doctors who have fully signed up and paid their initial fees. We have moved into St. Anne's Hospital and we are ready to go. So in summary, what I'm saying is that from July of 2018 up to now, it's about 3 years. We've walked this journey. We've managed to create a single specialty practice for 3 people. We've escalated it to a multidisciplinary specialist practice of 25 specialists. We've moved into a facility which we are sharing between the 3 of us. I personally think the future looks very good. I don't know what the future holds, but looks very exciting to me. Thank you very much, Mr. Lance.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of questions to be asked, but let's move forward. We will take no questions at this stage so that we can finish the program and discuss like colleagues. The next person to present is Mr. Taurai Zimono, and I described him before. I don't know whether I should say that he's a surgeon. He's not only a surgeon, he's not only a very good surgeon, but if there is anything that you don't know, for me, when I'm looking for a painter, I ask him. When you are looking for a printer for a computer, you ask him. When you want to cite something for presentation, ask him. He knows so much, but we are happy that he's here to talk to us about a little brief or a brief on group practice. Tarai, this is your time. Is that you, Tarai? Can you hear us, Tarai? Well, I can see your screen. Okay, all right. Unmute yourself, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I know you're a pediatric surgeon, but I didn't know that you had a kindergarten or something.
No, that was not my voice. I think somebody interrupted.
Ah, okay. All right,
yes.
Please go ahead.
So I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present to all members present today. I'm going to talk about briefly about group practice. I know it might seem longer than the title brief, because the subject itself takes a long time to discuss. In fact, I was hoping that this whole meeting today was going to be on group practice alone. But nevertheless, I enjoyed the first half of this set of the session in the morning about mentorship and the like. So I've got some disclosures, obviously, which should come through to you all members, so that you understand that I have got some congenital bias as far as group practice is concerned. Myself, I have never been a solo practitioner ever in my life. And before I started practicing, okay, can I continue?
Yes, please do.
Yes. So before I became a surgeon, I was a colleagueoid.
Carry on.
He's muted.
Tara, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself and speak, Tara?
Yes,
Fantastic.
I think I'm back on. Thank you.
Yes.
So I've got those biases listed there. I've never been a solo practitioner. I've always been in group practice. And at the moment, I can say I'm also, I'm now in a group practice. Besides that, I've done a lot of research and appraised a lot of group practice structures. And I can safely say I've got a lot of knowledge as far as this area is concerned. For a start, I would like to start by defining certain issues. When you qualify from medical school, you either fall into one of these or you become a scientist. If you're going to be a practitioner in medicine, you're going to be either in private practice, in group practice, belong to a large organization which is called a health maintenance organization. You're going to be a hospital-based practitioner, or you are going to solely be doing locums. Each one of these are the different practices of medicine that we all fall into. I will start by defining a little bit about private practice. Private practice, as it says, it's a soloist practice where you are alone. You are most likely going to be mapping the vision of your practice. You set your own rules, you set your own growth patterns, and you have freedom, so to speak. And this freedom is about when you are going to practice, who you are going to work with as far as support staff is concerned, and how you are going to deal with finances. But it's got its own downside. And the downside involves business risk. The risk of the practice solely on you. You work very long hours, and most times it's a lonely affair. You don't have anyone to call upon if you fall into problems. And financial extremes are not uncommon. There are months or weeks that you get a windfall, and there are months and weeks that you may almost go hungry and empty, on an empty stomach. So all these problems, they fall on you as a solo practitioner. Then there's group practice that I'm going to look at a little later. Large health maintenance organizations are usually medical institutions that are run by corporations, business entities that are in health, and these end up employing doctors. And when they employ doctors, obviously they are the ones who call the shots. These corporations usually have members or beneficiaries that are subscribed to them. So their sole purpose of being in medical practice and deploying doctors is to decrease costs, particularly to their members, and of course for their profit margins. There are multiple models to health maintenance organizations. There are also advantages and disadvantages to belonging to some of these corporations. You are guaranteed of a seemingly stable work-life relationship. You have regular hours of work. You have less paperwork or regulatory issues to worry about. Most of these are handled by the corporation itself. And you get yourself a regular salary and bonuses. But in some high value enterprises, this bonus is based on your productivity, your level of skill, and something else that has come into the picture as far as social media is concerned. And these are your patient satisfaction matrices. So if you are a very competent doctor, the best in your area, but you have poor patient satisfaction statistics or matrices, obviously you are not going to cut it for most of these enterprising health maintenance organizations. Then there is hospital-based practice, which can either be private or public. I think most of us are familiar with this because this is the background of how we get into medical practice, starting at public hospital as junior doctor, senior house officer, you become a senior a registrar, and then senior registrar, eventually to consultants level. There are some of us who end up in locums. So after qualifying, finish your internship, and then you start moving around doing locums. It's a high risk, high return kind of investment. High risk if you can get a locum that can pay you very well at good rates. But
all right.
Okay. So if you are doing locums, you have the freedom to move between towns, between regions, and you choose who you can work with or work for. But again, if you can't find the best locum rates, you can't find the best hospitals for growth of your skills, then that becomes a negative. Now, let's zero in on group practice. What it is, what is it exactly that we call group practice? This is when two.
Sorry to interrupt you. Are you showing slides?
Yes.
We are not seeing the slides. I'm not seeing any slide. That's
we can see them.
Oh, okay.
I can see
all right.
them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
So
sorry.
I can continue. So the slide I'm showing now is about.
Okay, carry on.
I'm trying to define to you what a group practice is. So when you have two or more practitioners coming together to provide medical care, within the same facility. That's what you would call a group practice. Now, there are many facets to what group practices are, and there are different types of group practices. What's common to them is that they have the same vision, they share the same resources as far as personnel, financial resources, or even material resources are concerned. And because the thrust of coming together in medical practice is to generate income to cover all the involved members, the income is divided in a way that has been predetermined by the group. If you remember from the last presentation by Mr. Mangwiro, he talked a lot about going back and forth from the lawyers trying to map out how the group practice can work. And these issues of determining particularly income are important for the holding the group together. Then the group itself will have its own set standards and its own issues, like how it's going to have succession and how it's going to grow as far as the future of the group is concerned. There are a number of advantages related to group practice, as we shall see. But the types can either be single specialty or multi-specialty type of group practices. If you've got a group of pathologists coming to work together and they do all their pathology work as one single group, that becomes a single specialty group practice. If you have a group of pathologists, a group of surgeons, a group of physicians, anesthetists, and the like coming together, then you end up with a multi-specialty group practice. I'll bring in again. I'll bring in again the health maintenance organizations. They have their own structures. Remember, the backbone of these health maintenance organizations is their membership. So they have a group of beneficiaries and members that they should satisfy. And they can also set up what appears to be a group practice, but which is not necessarily within the control of the different specialists who are in that group. So this type of I'm not going to be talking about health maintenance organization group practices, but group practices that are solely run by the doctors themselves. What is the context? What is it that's bringing us to talk about all this? Traditionally, everywhere in the world, people have always practiced or have largely practiced as either small groups or as isolated solo practitioners. But there's been a shift in thinking, and until the 1990s, since the 1990s, the proportion of physicians who were actually in solo practice has been coming down significantly. And these are statistics, are United States statistics. So you had almost 40% of solo practitioners of the total number of doctors. 40% were solo practitioners around the 1990s. But by the 2000s, this had fallen down to about 32.5%. And most doctors to date, they actually think practicing in a group is much better, has more benefits than being a soloist. What are these advantages that are leading to all this shift in practice behavior? Negotiating leverage. If you are in a group, it goes without saying that your negotiating is much better than if you are trying to negotiate as an individual. For members who are already in private practice, I'm sure you know how much difficult it is to try and make a negotiation with the medical aid funders or the various other groups that are stakeholders in healthcare to try and reach a consensus that's both beneficial to the doctor and to the patient. So coming together as a group has this advantage of leveraging on the numbers and you are most likely going to reach a better position if you are negotiating as a group. Then there's the issue of profitability. We cannot do medical practice without realizing the monetary value of it, because if we don't, then the business people are going to see the value. They take over the practice of medicine. You will now be answerable to them in many ways. Yes, you will be able to practice the art, but part of the science and the conscience of practicing medicine may actually be taken away by those who are not necessarily in the medical field. And when we are talking about profitability, I'm reminded of a chat that I saw in the posted in the group chat, asking if there is any value or was there any benefit from practicing as an individual versus practicing as a group. Some people think that if you go into solo practice, you are likely to reap more in terms of benefits. But the mentality comes from what's called scarcity mentality, where one thinks that if I own 100% of a cookie, then I'm much better than one who owns 2% of a cake. Yet, in most instances, 2% of a cake, if you take the average wedding cake these days, it's much bigger than what a cookie looks like. So you still have 100% control of your cookie. You can do whatever you like about it, but it's not the same as having 2% of a huge cake. So in terms of profitability, definitely there are huge differences that you can realize if you are with a group practice. Then the lifestyle. Mr. Mangwiro pointed out that when he joined the urology practice, he felt better. He was less burdened by the responsibility of having to look after difficult or complicated cases on his own. You have someone to call on. You have a second opinion to offer the patient before they even headhunt for their own second opinion behind your back. So you offer them the second opinion well in advance. So there are so many lifestyle changes that are positive as far as working in a group practice is concerned. As far as improvement of quality of care with patients, you will realize that the best medical institutions in the world actually started as group practices. And because they had a vision, they had ethos that they followed, they ended up being the best, not just in patient care, but in research and education of medical practitioners. And if any one of us would be happy to join some of these institutions, albeit without realizing their past history, which has been there for centuries, starting from a simple thing as coming together and forming a group practice. There are obviously challenges when you are changing a model from soloist to group practice. Not everyone will agree to what a group practice is, including associations. Case in point is the American Medical Association. When people started getting into groups, they were actually opposed to this idea. Even local organizations, particularly the medical funders, and also independent or soloist practitioners, they will be against the concept of group practice. Some will not believe that group practice offers better for the patient and for the practitioners. But most importantly, which I think is a selfish idea, is for solo practitioners to think that the group practice is there to weaken them and to take away business from their solo practices. But imagine working in a group practice where you can attend your golf sessions without worrying about a patient you operated on last week. Someone will be covering the nights for you. The weekends will be covered. You have better family interactions. I think that will be a better option than to fail to go on holiday because you happen to operate on a patient who is complicated across a long holiday like the one we have now, and you can't leave town. So there are many trends that have happened, but as I said earlier on, most people now favor group practice. I'm just going to share with you some statistics of what has been happening over time. So this shows you so I just let me just get this chart. It gives you some statistics as to what practice distribution was like between 2012 and 2016 in the United States. So if you look at solo practice, slowly, remember when I was talking about the early 2000s, they were about 32%, solo practice was 32% of total number of doctors. But by 2016, this had fallen to half the percentage, to 16.5%. And you now have emergence of types of practices, single specialty practice, multi-specialty practices, and obviously the smaller percentages of direct hospital employment and university-related associations. The same picture is shown on this graph, where you have got more than 1/3 of practitioners being in single specialty practice, and combining multi-specialty and single specialty practice, that almost constitutes 2/3 of all practitioners. And what are the numbers that you look at when you are looking at group practice? As I said in the definition, this can range from 2 practitioners to as many as 100. But the bigger the group, the more complex it is in terms of management and facing some teething problems to keep the group together. The general numbers are between 5 and 20 members, and these are more manageable, and they're likely to be successful, particularly in the early stages of development. There are obviously reactions that have been observed over time from the 1970s to date. Most people will not embrace this idea of group practice. It's expected. And then at some point, some will just be indifferent. They don't want anything to do with it. But there will come a time when they will be angry with themselves why they didn't think about it earlier on. This is one thing that Mr. Mangwiro mentioned, that when he eventually joined the urology practice, he saw the shortfalls that were associated with being a solo practitioner. The important thing, which is subject of this presentation, is for us to be none of these 2 guys running after a train when it has already left a station, or a bus when it has already left the station. You don't want to be this person, because anyone who has tried it knows how painful and embarrassing it is. I will lastly end by telling you a story, a short story about the Mayo Clinic. I think it's the best example of a group practice to date, which is over a century old. Started in 1883, incidentally after a disaster. They had struck Minnesota, and the Mayo family had 3 doctors, the father and the 2 sons. And when the disaster struck, they went to a hospital called St. Mary's, where they wanted to help the victims of the disaster. And after helping, they then approached the sister who was in charge of the order there, in charge of the hospital. And they asked if they could use some of the offices in that hospital to start off a clinic. By 1980s, they had been joined by 6 practitioners who were now working with them as a group practice. And by 1929, this hospital or clinic had grown to include 386 doctors. This is what the hospital looked like in 1910. And 4 years later, the group was able to build a new structure to be housed as the original Mayo Clinic. And only after another 14 years, they were able to expand their practice to this magnificent building, which is called the Plummer Building, and still stands to date, with a few changes. None of us can say they've never heard of the Mayo Clinic. If you're a surgeon, you know most of the instruments that we use are named after practitioners who have worked at the Mayo Clinic or after the clinic itself. They have had so many breakthroughs in medical science, and they have had so many awards attached to their scientists. This is what their current balance sheet looks like. Although they are group practice, you can see how much money flows through them every day, employing just over 3,000 employees. They've gone global, not just in the United States. They are now opening clinics in various places across the globe. But what held them together over the many decades and just over a century is the values of good clinical practice, research, and education. So to answer the previous question, can a group practice grow beyond the issue of just profit? The answer is yes. You can be the best in clinical practice, you can be the best in research, and you can be the best in education. To date, I'm a follower of the Mayo Clinic, and only last week they were nominated #1 ranked hospital for 6 consecutive years. Now, nobody would have dreamt that this is what the hospital will be like today, more than 100 years ago, but it's possible. That's why I mentioned to you, I have a bias towards group practice, and I think it's the way that surgeons or doctors should think and gravitate to working as groups and pulling their resources and skills together. I'll leave you with just one homework for you to look at. There is a short video that's called The Origins and Evolution of the Mayo Clinic from 1864 to 1939. If you look at this, you will be able to appreciate the power of group practice. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll stop my presentation here.
Thank you, Tarai, thank you so much. I think we have a few questions for you, but we will do that only when we have allowed Nancy Yonka to talk about group practice experience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to allow Nancy Yonka to talk about group practice. Nancy needs no introduction. She's a radiologist, and she has been the founder of Diagnostic Imaging Center. What I personally like about it, Nancy, is that when you are in trouble and when you don't know what to do and you think that the one investigation will be better than the other, you can call her at any time and discuss with her, just like most of the people that we work with. Nancy has been a pioneer, and I think that she has something to talk about her experiences in group practice. Nancy, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Danzo. It's such a privilege to be able to speak on this platform. And I think I'm the last speaker. There have virtually everything that needs to be said about group practice has probably been said already, but I'm going to just go through my experiences. What I will be talking about a little is the history, my history at the Diagnostic Imaging Center, why we should work as a group and not alone, what is needed for a successful group, the advantages, the challenges, and then a little comment on how one size does not fit all. So my history is that I initially trained as a radiographer in 1979 at the Andrew Fleming Hospital, which is now the Perinatal Hospital. And after I qualified as a radiographer in 1981, I worked at Matari General Hospital. Whilst I was a student radiographer, it was when I first encountered Professor Levy. And seeing that we've been talking about mentors, Professor Levy was my first mentor in the medical field. And I applied to the Godfrey Huggins School of Medicine as what was then called a mature student on the encouragement of Professor Levy. I then graduated from the university in 1986. I did my housemanship and SHO years at Harare Central Hospital. I then was lucky enough to be awarded a Byte Fellowship, and I went to the Hammersmith Hospital in London, where I did my fellowship with the Royal College of Radiologists. And I did a subspecialty in nuclear medicine at the University of London. I came back to Zimbabwe in 1993. And I knew then that what I wanted to do was to be able to set up a radiology facility with everything under one roof. But I realized that there was no way I could do that on my own. So the first thing I did was I approached some already established practices. And the thing that shocked me the most was when I was told straight to my face that there is no room for you here. Why don't you go back to the UK? So I was determined to follow my vision, and I went in search of partners that I could work with. I eventually partnered with Iatric Investments via the MedSolve Trust to establish the Diagnostic Imaging Center Private Limited. Together with Iatric, we borrowed money from Germany and we purchased brand new Siemens equipment, and we built the premises that still stands at number 17 Lanark Road as the Diagnostic Imaging Center. It opened its doors in 1995, and I've been consulting from those premises for the past 27 years. I only worked alone as a radiologist for a few months before I was joined by my first partner, who was Dr. Helena Hamilton-Wright, when she returned from training in the UK. Over the years, over these last 27 years, I've worked with numerous other radiologists who have joined the group. Some have come just for a few years at a time, and others have stayed and have been with me for more than 15 years. Why would we work as a group? I like this proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I can honestly say that the Diagnostic Imaging Center has done so well for so long because it has always been a team effort and we have always worked together. So what do we need for a successful group? I think the most important thing that I've learned is that you have to work with people who share the same vision as yourself. You have to have the same work ethic. You need to be like-minded. Complementary skills are very useful because you can, in a group, you can have some that are good at one thing and others that are good at others. Not everybody can do everything, and it's really nice to be able to have different skills. You need openness and you need easy communication between the members of the group. You need absolute transparency concerning the business structure. You need the ability to be flexible because there are different partners will have different requirements. There's so many different working arrangements that can be made. And then you always need to have what I call a managing partner, somebody who is managing the partnership, and that managing partner can rotate amongst the members of the group. The advantages have been mentioned already by the previous speaker, in fact, that working together to problem solve, two heads are always better than one. The teamwork of leveraging different skill sets, the ability to plan time off, to go to study, to go on holidays, to attend special events. The other one is the backup when the unexpected happens, and the unexpected will always happen. There will always be family emergencies, there will be illness. One of the great benefits to me of being in a group practice was when I got cancer in 2005 and I needed surgery, I needed chemotherapy, but it was easy for me because I had two partners at the time who were able to step up, and cover the practice whilst I was unable to work. You need backup when somebody is called upon to teach, if you're called upon to serve on the medical council, if you have to attend court, all these things happen, and it just gives more flexibility that you can do and you can serve when you're called upon to do that, knowing that the practice will be covered. You can also develop a healthy mix of cultures and gender to serve all sectors of the community. So we have all culture females. It's really nice to be able to let the male patients be attended to by a male radiologist if they need to have a transrectal prostate scan. It's nice when you have female patients who only want to see a female doctor who can then step up and attend to the female patients. So it gives you a lot of flexibility if you have a nice mix of gender and culture. There's challenges within a group practice. It really needs good management. It needs leadership. And you have to have a structure that everybody within the group understands. There's a very necessary role for a practice manager who's going to manage the members of staff. We need human resources, we need accountants, we need lawyers. We need to pooling resources and sharing costs can be quite a tricky thing. Whenever it comes to money, it's often tricky, but that needs to be managed well. You need a consensus on how to recruit staff and how to recruit new members of the group. And then one needs to be flexible. Everyone has different needs. A junior doctor or associate, when they first join the practice, have their own needs. There may be young mothers who need time with their children, who need breastfeeding time, etc. And then there are those nearing retirement, and the whole concept of succession planning and retirement comes up. So those can all be challenges for a group, but it's not something that cannot be managed. Also, one size doesn't fit all. We're all different. Some will always prefer to work alone and to be autonomous. If you do that, you can be the master of your own destiny, but also that can be a very lonely and a very isolating existence. One of the big problems is that when we're at medical school, we're not taught any of this business, how to run a business. Business administration is foreign to many of us, and some will just feel more comfortable running the practice as a family business. They involve their wives to help in the reception. They have their uncle who's a lawyer will draw up the arrangements. So sometimes it's much more comfortable just being on your own and running your business as a family business. But as a group practice, it can be anything from 2 people upwards. There are radiology groups in South Africa which have up to 30 partners and associates, and they can be in multiple different sites. And those group practices are the strong practices in South Africa. So there's very definitely strength in numbers. And then how one operates your practice will depend on the size and the type of the practice. If it's a capital intensive practice, like for radiology, it's very difficult to set up on your own because there's a huge capital expense in setting up a business. But you also want your skill mixes and having a different range, a whole range of experience amongst the people that are in the group. It requires planning. It requires constant attention to detail. And then it also requires the members of the group to be willing to change, to be willing to grow with time, and to be flexible. So in summary, it's, as in everything in life, it's a personal choice. It depends on how one wishes to balance work and life. People's preferences can change over time. Many people start off in solo and end up in a group. But so your preferences certainly can change over time. You need to take the time and make the effort to set up the structure in advance. And you need to be prepared to be flexible. It's very important to work with like-minded people. Partnership is rather like a marriage or a family. You need to be able to work together. A group practice can also be very rewarding and very fulfilling. And for myself, I have really enjoyed working within a team and being able to collaborate with colleagues to share responsibilities and to share the clinical workload. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, before we carry on, let me say thank you to all the presenters and to all of you who made today possible. Before I carry on, is Wilfred Muteweye there?
Yeah, yes, I'm there.
Okay,
Thank you,
Wilfred, how many minutes do I have to ask for questions and so on? Because I think this requires comments and questions. Can we carry on?
Yeah, 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen. The first one I'm going to call upon is Nozipo. Nozipo, are you there? All right. Okay, let's get, I think she'll come later on. If you want to ask a question, please put your hand up and then we see. I see Marlon Nyakabao has raised his hand here. Can you go ahead, Marlon?
Thank you very much, Uncle Alex. My question is on question or comment. The need for group practices then sustain themselves and grow. I think the example of Mayo Clinic was rightly mentioned, and how they managed to keep on adding more and more doctors. So I wanted to ask what structures can then be put in place that allow for, let's say, a recent specialist, someone who just graduated last year, who is yet to have a dime to their name, but for them to be incorporated within existing group structures and then have a way of them rising through the ranks. Because sometimes the existing group structures can be seem intimidating and closed off to new entrants or younger colleagues as they want to then also join. So so that's my question. Thank you very much.
I agree with you entirely that it can be intimidating, but there are all sorts of groups. There are all sorts of group practice that you can talk of. Some people join as associates and then they go forward to become a junior partner and then a senior partner. And there are some people who join as partners and so on. So if there is a particular group that you want to join, I think that is what you have to explore. But Nancy Yonka cleared it up totally. It must be of like minds. There must be flexibility. And I think it is so important that people who want to join must look at what the group practice, the deed is, and what their regulations are, and how you can join. That's, I think, it's most important. People of like mind, and whether there is a way for people to join as associates or for people to join as partners straightforward. So those things should be looked at. And there are some places in the city today where you can join as one way or the other, as an associate or as a partner. Do we have another one? Nozipo, are you back? Dr. Marari is not there, so let's get the next question. I can't see a hand up. I can't see a hand.
There's a hand for Dr. Chimuka, David Chimuka.
Okay, David, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to know, those who are experienced in this group practice, take for instance our specialty. The equipment in this specialty is very, very expensive. who is going to meet the purchasing of the equipment and facilities? I just wanted to know from Nancy whether she bought all the equipment before the others joined, or from your side, the urologists. I'm sure you've got other also expensive equipment which you have bought. How did you group up that money to buy that equipment? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, David. Nancy, you want to answer that question?
Yes, with pleasure. At the beginning, when the Diagnostic Imaging Center was set up, it was so the Diagnostic Imaging Center has two shareholders. There are two investment companies that are the shareholders, and those, so Iatric Investments and Lawford Investments. And they borrowed money from a German bank to purchase all of the equipment. That equipment was then paid, that loan was paid off in 5 years by the profits of the practice. So together as investors, all the equipment was purchased and then paid off. Those two investors are still equal partners in the Diagnostic Imaging Center. So that the business side of the Diagnostic Imaging Center is still run by two shareholders, both of whom were responsible for paying back the loan to purchase that equipment. So there are many ways of doing it. If the people who go into the business have already got funds that they want to put together to pay for equipment, or if you want to borrow money, then you just have to have a structure of how that money will be paid back and how the shareholding continues.
Thank you, Nancy. For us, it's also the same. We bought a few equipment and we borrowed money. We've paid for that, and we are looking forward to buying other equipment. I saw Professor Faith Muchemwa's hand up. Before you speak, maybe after you, Chris Samkange can talk about Western Clinic. Western Clinic was the first institution where doctors came together and as a group built something up, and they did that very nicely. And I think that story, as he puts it, has to be told also. So next is Professor Muchemwa, followed by Chris Samkange. Faith, are you there?
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Thank you very much to all the presenters. All the presentations were really, really good and amazing. My question is, how do new partners enter an established partnership? Like Dr. Yonka, for example, if she's been in practice for 20 years and then just a new person comes in, are they being paid a salary, or do they have to pay something so that they can be considered a partner? Like, and also, how do you sell that goodwill that you've built for yourself to the new specialists or the new partners that are coming in?
I'm going to allow Dr. Yonka to answer that, but as I said, it's just like the question that the young gentleman Marlon asked before. There are all specific things to do. People can get in as associates and then later on come to a junior partner and then come to partner. So there are diversified forms of these partnerships. But I'll let Nancy Yonka talk for herself.
Thank you, Mr. Danzo. With the Diagnostic Imaging Center, when people have come back and wanted and worked as associates and earned a salary, which has been quite useful because it allows people to determine whether or not they're interested in joining the business or not. To become a shareholder, one would need to purchase shares. The shares in the company are valued, and then the shares can be offered people can work for their shares, they can pay for their shares up front, etc. So there's so many different ways of bringing in people to work.
Absolutely.
The other way that they can come in and work is to work as an independent consultant within the group. And as an independent consultant, they earn according to the work that is done. So independent consultants are free to come and go as they wish, and whatever work is done within the group, they are remunerated for the work that is done. So there's so many different ways. It has to be done by mutual agreement, and some structures suit some people better than other structures and accommodate people's different requirements.
Thank you, Nancy. I have Chris Samkange, but Chris, before you speak, can I let Professor Ruduma Kunike Mutasa speak so that you can come after her? So, Rudu, please go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much. I hope I won't get into trouble for going before Mr. Samkange.
No, when I'm here, I protect you fully.
Your protection. Okay, thank you. I have a question about the multidisciplinary group practice.
Yes.
Whether or not, I think Mr. Samkange has actually alluded to it in in the chat, whether it is with profit sharing or not, because in places like America, in UK, South Africa particularly, that is prohibited because it can compromise the patient. If you are in a group practice where you have a GP, a surgeon, and a pathologist and a radiologist, for example, the patient can be at the mercy of the practice because the GP will always refer everything to the surgeon. Every little lump and bump must go to the surgeon. Every little thing, have an x-ray, have this blood test, whatever. So one, you are over-investigating the patient because you know that the profits are coming back to you if there's profit sharing. And you also are always referring to the same person in your practice, even if they're not the best person for that patient. So there are ethical considerations as well as I guess, invading or contravening the patient's charter. So is it with profit sharing or just professional? That's my question.
There are two things with the multidisciplinary one. This is a new one altogether, and this is a group of people. It is with profit sharing, but not the profit sharing that we are a profit-making group. First of all, we have associates, and the associates that we have are, in fact, outliers, and they are the best in the profession as far as we are concerned. So those are the people that we associate with, and we let the patient go to see the best. So that kind of getting people referring to each other because they will have the profit does not arise in this multidisciplinary one. Because there are only 35 of us, but we have associates and the number is about 84. The associates are people that we think in the profession will provide us with the best background and with the best support. That's answering your question.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Jan. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Mr. Samkange, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danso, and I really would like to start by thanking you personally for putting together an amazing agenda program. You actually covered two topics, each one to a depth that I thought would never be possible in the time allowed. Thank you for the obviously hard work you did before you put it all together. And of course, thanks to the SSZ for the opportunity. And I would really like to thank you for letting me say a few words about West End Clinic. West End Clinic, as Mr. Danso says, was really the first get-together of a group of Zimbabwean doctors who put together a clinic. Our vision at that time was it was going to be a clinic and a hospital. And indeed, we built the West End Clinic, and we subsequently built 5 years later the hospital. Unfortunately, we, like all good doctors, as has been said by Nancy Yonka,
we didn't have training in business, and we were dribbled, lost the goal, and Western Hospital now belongs to another organization. However, the dream lives on in the sense we still want to create another hospital to run it. But what brought us together was the recognition that on one's own, you don't go very far. And we came together as a multidisciplinary team. And as I said in the chat, against the ideals of the HPA Act, which specifically forbade family practitioners from specialists to be under the same roof and working together, which is why we were clever enough to ask the then head of state to open the institution, which protected us from the wrath of Timothy Stamps. And in his next HPA Act, that was actually taken out, that particular clause. But we believe that it is in the patient's interest to have access to a diversity of practitioners. And one of the concepts we held very strongly to was that there should never be a choice of only one person within that specialty. That's why we try to have 2 physicians, 2 surgeons, two general practitioners, 2 gynecologists, etc., so that Rudo's concern about the patient being at the mercy of the group would somewhat be lessened. I think we've got to a very large degree past that point, and we still believe that it is the way to go. We maintained as a group that we're not obliged to refer to each other. And in practice, you have seen us behave that way. In answer to a later question that was asked about how new people should join, Western Clinic is right now working on a modality whereby new practitioners, younger practitioners can join us as a group and become shareholders. And this will be unveiled once we've finished our stakeholders meeting in our strategic planning on exactly how new practitioners can invest in the Western Clinic. This is also in recognition that a succession plan has to take place, as some of us now are nearing the twilight of our careers, and it would be fair to hand this over to another group of energized young people to run the institution. Thank you for the opportunity to let us speak.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we will take one last comment, and then I'll hand over to Wilfred Mutewe. Do we have a hand up here somewhere? I don't think we have. It remains for me to say thank you to all the presenters and to all of you. Sorry?
There is Dr. Tsikai.
Wants to speak.
Oh, Dr. Tsikai.
Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
hello.
Dr. Yes, Dr.
Hello.
Tsikai. Go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Danso, and thank you to everybody for the excellent presentations. My question to Dr. Yonka is, how do you maintain work standard and work ethic amongst yourselves? And how do you discipline yourselves in case a colleague starts lacking in professionalism? For example, failure to keep time, appointments with patients, terrible interpersonal skills with patients and staff, and lack of diligence. Your colleague is now making mistakes, too many complaints from patients with potential for lawsuits against the practice. How do you protect your practice and cover up for your colleague or protect your colleague? At the same time, assist your colleague in improving without looking and sounding like a prefect. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sakai. Thank you. I think there again is the whole communication within the group and the whole question of self-audit and peer audit amongst the group. So it's not always an easy thing to do, but it's something that at least when you're in a group, you can talk about it and you can discuss errors and omissions amongst the group. And again, that is why they need to be like-minded people and constant peer audit. I think that is the easiest way to go about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Our sponsors, I promise that we would give them 1 minute to show where we can get them and so on. But I think Wilfred Mutewe will be in a better position to continue from there. But thank you all participants. I think this was a very fruitful morning. Thank you. Wilfred, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danso. You have handled this meeting very brilliantly. I don't know how more than 2 hours have gone by, but it was a very, very wonderful topic, and we learned quite a lot from the very first topic on mentorship. There's a picture there that I have just shared. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, the athlete.
Yes, yeah. So this tells a very, very powerful story about more like mentorship. On that picture there, you see a Kenyan runner who is called Abel Mutai, and there is another marathon runner from Spain. So these guys were running a marathon in Spain, and as they were towards the end of the race, Abel Mutai couldn't read the signs that were written in Spanish. So he thought the race was over, and he just stopped running. And there were all these signs everywhere, right round about him. But the guy who was behind him, he was a Spanish guy, and he knew that all these signs didn't tell that the race was over. So instead of this guy overtaking him, he pushed Mutai. Initially, he tried to show him that no, the race ends there, but Mutai couldn't understand. And then he pushed him until he crossed the line. And in the end, Mutai won. And when this guy was asked, why did you do that? Why did you push him? Why didn't you win? He answered in a very powerful manner that sometimes in life, it's not all about winning. And he also said that I knew that even before I pushed him, he had already won the race. He was left with about 10 or so meters. So to me, he had already won. So in life, we need such people who know that sometimes life is not all about winning, but sometimes you need somebody who pushes you, who has already been there, who can read the signs and can tell you that, young man, I know all you are looking at in life is winning, but sometimes it's very important to have these people who push you and show you the way. So this is, to me, it was quite a brilliant way of mentorship, of having someone who is a resident of the area, who is showing this young guy that no, you haven't made it. Let's go together and you'll make it. So I just wanted to show this image as an example of a mentor who chose to make his mentee win the race. And in the end, both of them morally, they won. So thank you very much for such a topic. And on the second topic, it was brilliantly done. It's only that time wasn't on our side, but it's a very, very good topic. And I like it myself personally when the doctors talk about finance and money issues, because really money matters. So thank you to Mr. Danso. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you to our sponsors. We will share the details together with the presentation. We're going to put it on our YouTube channel, Surgical Society of Zimbabwe YouTube channel. So you'll find the presentation probably by Monday or Tuesday. All the details will be there on our channel. So if there are no other questions or comments, I'll call it a day and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
very much. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
That's all.